Thank you so much for joining our chat today. I see lots of familiar names and some new names piling in. So I think we can go ahead and get started. My name is Yen Tang. I am Director of Outreach for the Georgia Technology Authority, Office of Digital Services and Solutions, and I'm so glad to welcome you to our very first GovChats. This is our new series of conversations that we're having with other states about our common challenges, some lessons learned, some maybe a good solution or two. So anything we can help share to help improve the digital government experience for all of our constituents. Before we really get started, I just want to have some few notes of housekeeping. We are recording this, and so that we can share later. The general format of this chat is nothing foreign. I'm sure for everyone who's joined a Zoom webinar before. We're going to just have I have a few questions for our guests, and then we'll open it up to Q&A from y'all. So anything that y'all have on mind as our guests are speaking, please use the Q&A box that's at the bottom of your menu down there, so we don't miss it. If you put it in the chat, it might get lost. So it'd be great if you just use that Q&A box, and we'll get to those questions after about 25 minutes or so. So yeah. So that's it. So today, what we're going to do is explore the ways that our states, Georgia and Iowa, have approached centralizing the management of state information and access to services, and some of those similarities and differences in these content management systems. So I am so pleased to welcome Don Conant from Iowa's Division of Information Technology, and Donna Sumner, from my colleague from the Georgia Technology Authority. So welcome to you both. Thank you so much for joining. And I think we can just like hop in and get started if we want to just start with some introductions. Don, if you don't mind getting started, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, your role, and provide a high level or overview of your state's content management system?
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dawn Conant. I am the e-government services coordinator here for the state of Iowa. I've been here about 10 years now in central IT, working across state government, all the agencies, and the systems that we use to connect with constituents, making sure that they have a consistent and a positive online experience. So it does cover what we're doing from our websites, but it also covers what we're doing for electronic forms, electronic payment, and to the extent that we're leveraging chat bots and open record requests and open data. Everything kind of falls into our digital services bucket. So it goes beyond the website. And here in Iowa, we are using Drupal 10. And we, about a year and a half ago, embarked on a process to bring everybody into a consistent brand and experience. And we had 92 different websites, all with a different look and feel. And the governor's office said, this is not great. And the governor would like to see this improved. So we were very fortunate to have that executive stakeholder support for the initiative. Today, we have 28 sites that are now live on our new platform. So unlike Massachusetts, and more like Georgia, each agency does have their own website, but the back end code is the same. So it's a multi-site, and we've worked with agencies to try to improve the experience in other ways, along with improving the content itself. But that's a lot for right now, and we'll turn it over to Donna.
Thanks, Dawn. I'm Donna Sumner, and I work with Yen, as she mentioned, in the GTA Digital Services and Solutions team. My role is project manager, and I helped to manage the project to build the initial instance of what's now GovHub, which was way back in 2011. Actually, we had about 50 websites on a different content management system, several different versions of that content management system, and it wasn't running very well. Our users didn't love it, so we knew we had to build something. Our team was fascinated, intrigued, and absolutely sold on open source. There's such an opportunity for cost effectiveness and the ability to really just build what you need, be in control of that. And so we knew that's the direction we wanted to go. We also love the idea of sharing with the community and benefiting from the community of developers out there. Drupal has such a wide community. We thought this is a great fit for our needs. And so we went with it. We jumped right in. And we've just been thrilled with that as one of the first states to use Drupal for our enterprise content management. At the same time, then back in 2011, we made a kind of controversial decision too to stop hosting on-prem and actually move to the cloud. It's not controversial today, but back in the day it sure was, but it's worked wonderfully for us. Since then, we were on Drupal 7. Since then, we rebuilt the platform. In 2018, we started planning that as we were making our path from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. And that's when we rebuilt what's now GovHub, and we also refreshed our enterprise brand at the same time. Now we're on Drupal 10. We have about 80 websites on GovHub. That includes Georgia.gov, as well as some of our state agencies' largest sites, like the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Driver Services, DOR, et cetera. So it's going really well.
Yay, great. Donna, can I follow up a little bit on, you use the term on-prem. That means on premises, right? Where the data is actually stored locally.
Right.
And that's going to the cloud. Why do you have, were there reasons why it was controversial at that time?
Well, at the time, there was a mandate for all state data to be stored at the North Atlanta Data Center, which is on-prem for us. And so we actually got an exception to that. We sold in the benefits of the cloud hosting, the ability to spin up a server when your traffic spikes, and the ability to have this extra really specialized services of these hosting providers who can watch out for your security, and they can alert you to things that are going on. And on top of all of that, the cost effectiveness of it was hard to argue. So we got an exception, and we got to move to cloud hosting back in 2011.
Oh, wow. Oh, that was a long time ago. I was trying to do math. I couldn't do it right now. It's like 13 years ago. Wow. And then Don, you had mentioned mass.gov and how Iowa is different from mass.gov. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
So in Massachusetts, they have a single Drupal instance. And so all the content is on one site. It's one large site. So we've got, when we get through the project shortly into next year, we'll have 42 sites. We'll have shrunk from 92 to 42. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We discovered that there could have been maybe special purpose website that an agency spun up and it only had 8 or 10 pages. And, we really want the content to remain on the agency website, even if it's a special program. Agencies can get a unique domain name, a vanity URL, but then point back, and that allows us to have fewer servers to have to manage. We are also hosting in the cloud. We started on Drupal in Iowa back in before my time, so probably around 2010, they started moving to Drupal. And in 2016, we did go to the cloud. We went to AWS, but now with this project, we've moved to Pantheon, and for those same reasons, that the additional services that we get from Pantheon to help around security and managing the traffic and the caching that's available. Since we launched on the platform last January, we have not had any outages, and that's partly because of caching. So if there's a problem along the way, that doesn't impact the end users, because most of the information is served from a cache memory environment.
That's awesome. That sounds like a big win. Don, can you maybe mention another big win with all these migrations of the sites to, you said it will be 42 by next year.
Right.
It's just something else that you might be really proud of that.
Well, I think we just hit it out of the park on branding, and part of the initiative, I mean, it was led through the governor's office. We worked with an outside agency, but we included all of the agency department directors and the agency public information officers and a lot of other folks in the agency so that they were aware of this change as it was occurring. So we were building the website on platform, and then in parallel, we were working to revise the brand so that when we settled on that new brand, then that could be on the website and everybody could leverage it. And so agencies having to let go of their unique logos and colors, and every time a project comes up, you know, there's some amount of time that's spent discussing, well, what's the right colors, and you eliminate that from the project. So again, it can go much faster. We do have a couple of different color palettes that folks can choose from, but again, they all center on our new design and our new theme in Iowa, which is freedom to flourish. And so I think that, you know, the executive sponsorship is really key, but agencies largely, they love this fresh look that we have. I mean, sites are clean. We have so much more white space because of the way the platform is structured. It's easier to it's easier on the eyes, and it's more accessible. So we're very excited about that.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So Donna, it's a sort of similar question to you, for with GovHub, that GovHub was the name of Georgia's content management system. Don, the name of Iowa's is digital experience, right?
Right.
Digital experience. Okay, so for GovHub, that also included a branding update, right? An enterprise branding update. Is that a big win for us too? Would you say?
I would say it was a huge win for us, Yen. So back before 2011, before Drupal 7, when we were on that other platform, you could look at 2 state agency websites and you would not know that they were part of like the same enterprise state of Georgia common elements. They just didn't exist. And so we did introduce commonalities back then. But then with the upgrade to Drupal 8 and rebuilding the platform as GovHub, we refreshed the enterprise brand and really extended it too at the same time. And it's really nice. You know, you can look at any 2 sites. They're similar enough. We have state level branding. We have common layouts, but they're not the same layout. So driver services and DOR are sister sites maybe, but not identical twins. And that was important to our agencies, but it's important to our constituents too, who go to both of those sites. Almost every Georgian goes to both of those sites, for example, and you shouldn't have a completely different experience and say, whoa, is this legit? Is this even Georgia? So we definitely had a win there, but we also had a lesson learned because unlike what Dawn was just saying, we had a lot of agencies who are very tied to their individual agency branding. And so part of our like initial enterprise brand plan was to have a color palette, a master color palette, and then we could kind of, you know, divvy up those colors in different ways for different sub palettes. Turned out though, we really did have to flex on the color somewhat. But you know what, it works. We let some colors in that maybe we weren't expecting to, but those enterprise elements that the agencies were more than happy to absorb in addition to their brand, not in place of their brand. Those enterprise elements are enough so that we can have a broader color palette than maybe what we expected, but it really works.
That's great. I was thinking in terms of brand and consistency with this state level. Are these designs, do you all share them at a lower like municipality level, like with cities or counties at all?
So in Iowa, we have not done that yet. We just haven't had the bandwidth to be able to do that. I think our hope is certainly to be able to make that available because we do a lot of work with cities and counties and other areas.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's look on the other side of the coin. So wins, yes, we all love wins, but let's talk about a few challenges that we've had with this an enterprise CMS and adoption and hurting all these state agency cats and stuff. Like how do you overcome or get them to join or convince them, like what do we have mandates, Donna? Is that something in Georgia that we have?
Actually, no. Georgia does not have a mandate. You don't have to necessarily use GovHub. So it's important to us that the pros outweigh the cons, and every agency is different. They have their own budget, they have their own priorities. So what we have found, the big challenge is to kind of find that balance between the consistency that's required to have a single code base for one thing, but then also have an enterprise look and feel, but the flexibility then for these agencies to say, yeah, that actually meets my needs, I'm happy with it, and I'll join. So we've kind of had to learn over time things for us, like the example with the color palette. We had to take a step back and say, what is our actual goal here? Our actual goal is for our constituents to trust Georgia sites because they're similar. That helps to build trust among your constituents. They don't have to learn how to use a new site each time they go, things like that. Colors, it'd be great if they were all like of this, palette or whatever, but it's not required. The enterprise branding was enough. So we had to learn that give and take a little bit, as we went along. Totally worthwhile. And it's true on the back end too. Some agencies needed things that other agencies didn't, and that's very difficult with the singular code base. But we found where we can give and take, and we found through the process of where we need to look at the big picture, and what's going to actually impact our goals. If something's not going to negatively affect our goals, which are constituent facing for the most part, we're not gonna fight the nitpicky things, but it still has to be maintainable. It still has to be accessible and things like that. But sure, we'll let purple come in or whatever the case may be, as long as it's accessible and as long as it doesn't interfere with the constituent's experience.
Right. And Don, any challenges to getting agencies to join your platform?
So we may have had, concerns or questions from agencies, but because of that executive sponsorship that, the governor's office is directing the project. We also have a steering committee that it's the public information officers, the PR people in each agency, the largest agencies, really. We've got about 10 agencies that meet regularly to talk about the project and then prioritize enhancements. So we do, we're continuing to build out additional functionality, and there may be a need from one agency that when we look at it, we say, yep, they're the only ones using it right now, but it would sure be beneficial because we could see where it could be used by other people. In the past, if an agency built that feature on their own, that was great. They got it, but nobody else did. And now, because it's centrally funded, the agencies aren't having to pay anything for all of this. We're paying for the whole thing. But even if it's free for for an agency, they still have individual needs. And so we do want to take them into consideration. But when the steering committee says that's a low priority, they don't want to invest in building it, or the governor's office says we're changing our domain names from .com to .gov, and that's been the hardest thing. I mean, for agencies, because they've got things in print, and they have a long relationship with a .com, but at an executive level, from a security perspective, we want everything on .gov. It goes to that constituent trust. And so some agencies are having to change their domain URL. But we've been successful because the governor's office has been right behind us the entire way. And it is, I think, improving that trust with our constituents from the from the domain itself to the consistent experience from site to site.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, again, the whole thing is can be stressed and emphasized enough how much having the government, the power, the power of the governor behind you is great. But also, I want to just emphasize that's free is amazing. That's and that's not how we do it in Georgia, but I wish we could. That's awesome. Um, so it's like it's represents a cost savings for the agencies from what they've been, how they've hosted a site previously.
Right. So many, we have a few sites, the ones that and a couple of the big ones. Health and Human Services is already done. So if you want to go to hhs.iowa.gov, you'll see the new brand look and feel and experience. The same is true with workforce.iowa.gov. But part of our consolidation is that which we also refer to sort of as alignment, right? We're aligning everything. That IWD Workforce was one that they had 6 or 7 or 8 different websites, right? If there was an initiative that happened around an apprenticeship program, they spun up a different instance. And so some of that additional content still rolling into the workforce.iowa.gov site. But uh, with the domain change, it's really been the support from the governor's office that's made it successful.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. Okay. Let me direct this next question to Don about content. And of course, the sites are nothing without content. The CMS is all about content. Does your team have any accountability or any plans towards keeping the state site content fresh or have content quality checks or anything like that?
Absolutely. So we're fortunate. We're centrally funding Moncito, which is a tool we use to check for, to look at the inventory on a site, to also check reading level. And so the steering committee, as the project kicked off, we established our goals. So our goals are, when a site is moving into the DX platform, that they're going to reduce their content by at least 30%. And that's because unfortunately our websites became file cabinets, right? And if the phone rang and somebody asked for something, we just put it on the website, even though the use by the large community isn't very, very great. And then, the problem is that I'm looking for something, and when I have 5,000 or 10,000 pages of stuff, I can't find the thing that I'm really looking for. It's harder when there's too much stuff. So we had a goal to reduce the content, to increase the readability level, or rather to decrease the readability level to an 8th grade level for at least the top 10 pages on the agency site. And then also to ensure the quality assessment that we get out of Moncito, as well as accessibility. So agencies are benchmarked on that from before to after. And then on an annual basis, we do an assessment. But part of what we did with this project is, as we focused on the constituent and improving their experience, we also wanted to make sure that the platform met the need of the content editors themselves. And so we wanted to build in a way that content editors would be notified or have an ability to view content that hadn't been updated in 12 months. So then they could determine, oh, you know what, that stuff should be unpublished. We're not keeping press releases on our website for the last 10 years anymore. We're only keeping press releases for the last year. And so if there's content that needs to be unpublished, or we need to check on the information itself, that we're able to do that. So we're still building, that's a component that is being built right now, but should be available before the end of this fiscal year, so that our content editors will have the ability to review their content.
That's wonderful. Yeah, we have a similar program in Georgia. I won't go into it, but we use a different product, but also measuring that sort of content quality and freshness, and assigning scores and things, so that it's sort of when you gamify something, it makes it a little more fun and people want to get those better scores. So, so yeah, I wanted to just have a final question before I open it up to, we have a few questions from our audience, which is great. But I have one more thing to ask of you both, of particularly of digital services for constituents. We know that they are not only informational, like they're not coming just one way, but that they're often, or very importantly, transactional. And so, Dawn, if you could start, how do you meet those needs of on your platform, or maybe on another sort of solution that you might have of the transactional services?
Certainly. So we discovered early on that there were a few of our websites that were more unique in nature, in part from a look and feel, but also they might be more transactional. You might be able to order, and the site I'm thinking about is Your Life Iowa, which local public health departments or organizations can order information about dealing with substance abuse or gambling or other addiction issues. And so we determined that we had a need to build a second platform. So we're going to have, and we're going to start this summer, to build what we call a marketing platform. So then those additional features that we want to have available will be available to those types of sites that need more features.
Donna, do we have something like that?
No,
No.
we don't host the transactional applications
okay.
Centrally like that, but we do offer services to our agencies to service their transactional apps, and we're actually really excited about it. Their website on GovHub is an informational website. It's one-way communication for the most part, but usually there's then the link from there where the information is to the application where the constituent actually needs to transact. Like, I need to apply for my driver's license or whatever the case may be. So when they click over to the application, which is owned by the agency and their development partners, it could look very different, and it's hard to make it look like their informational site. So we built a design system, and its name is Orchard. That's what we call it. And basically there, an agency or their development partner can go and get the UI elements. They need checkboxes, or they need the enterprise brand, or they need the color palette, or whatever it may be. They can go and pick it from there, code and all. And in addition to usage guidance, like, here's why you would use a checkbox instead of a radio button or whatever. So they can pick it and they can add it to their applications so that their UI matches closely to their informational website. We think it's really important for the constituents, but it's important for the agencies too, because they want them to look the same. But that's a big burden to add to the agency who's trying to build and manage this application, to also copy this website look and feel, bring in the accessibility and all of that. It's expensive for them, it's time consuming, and the results really are inconsistent, maybe at best. So, so now if we can offer those design elements, they can not worry about that. They don't have to have a UI designer to build something custom or design something custom. So we're really excited. We just released the MVP of Orchard just a couple of months ago. And so we're really hopeful to start seeing some applications picking that up in the next year or so.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you both. I'm going to go and switch gears to some of the audience questions. I have a little set here on Drupal. And so I want to, let's take the first one for both of you. Can y'all go into more in detail on why Drupal and as opposed to any other sort of open source CMS? Like, why'd you pick that one?
I can tackle that. The back end, like I said, before my time, but in 2010, we evaluated several different platforms, Drupal being one. We also looked at WordPress, and part of the decision, I mean, is similar to Georgia in that we really like open source, and we like being part of a community. We like sharing and contributing. But we also had feedback at that time that from our security division that they really didn't like WordPress. So we did have a couple of agencies, and I meant to mention this before, that had .NET developers in their organization, and they really wanted to build on .NET Nuke. So those two large sites, DOT and DNR, today are on .NET Nuke, and they are coming into Drupal, and will start their process here very shortly. So every site will be on Drupal when we're completed, and the decision to go to Drupal had to do with being open source, part of the community, as well as guidance from security.
And I'll tack on. We also experienced all those same things that Dawn just mentioned. Security was a big concern. We love the size and the scale of the Drupal community too, and the engagement, and however many 60,000 or however many modules were available that were already there that we could pull in, because the community is just so active and so giving with their knowledge and the things that they've built. So we knew we could build an awesome platform on Drupal pretty quickly. And we've built it from there, and then even given things back to the community, which has been really, really great for us. It makes us feel, important. It's important to us to be able to give back what we've invested into, so other states or anybody really could benefit from it. But we love the Drupal community, in addition to the mentions that Dawn had earlier.
Donna, a follow-up to that participant is asking you particularly is Georgia in Site Factory? Is that no?
No, we don't use Site Factory. We're multi-site. We're hosted on Acquia, multi-site, but not using Site Factory.
Okay. Our next question is for Dawn. And I think we may have answered this, but is there a connection, or what is the connection between Iowa and Massachusetts?
So when we looked to rebrand and build a single platform for our agencies to use, we looked at other states, and benefited from their best practices. And so we looked at what Georgia had done. We looked at Massachusetts. State of Arizona is also a Drupal site, and looked at what they were doing. And there were some similarities between Georgia and Massachusetts, and you'll see that in Iowa as well. And our header or top hat, where you're on an official government website. How do you know?
Yes.
That helped. We got a lot of ideas from those other sites, and so as we investigated state of Massachusetts, we learned that they had built it one set of code, one site, single site. All content editors are managing in that environment. And so when we looked at that and then really talked to the agencies in that steering committee, we weren't quite ready to go that far. And we give those agencies a little more flexibility in their design to have those independent sites. But again, going from 92 to 42, that's a big win.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like, as far as I know, like more states have gone like our route, right? Not the Massachusetts way of one site, but yes. Okay. Yep. Okay. There's more. There's lots more. Okay. So let me find the next one. For Don, what are the features you needed to add on the marketing platform that are different from their digital experience? Just like one or two that
Sure.
was different.
So one is we're going to implement probably the commerce module in Drupal again, so that people can place an order online and then it can be fulfilled for ordering brochures and posters or maps and other information. The second thing is that we also have a need to do a quiz-like feature to help engage the user and asking them questions and then giving them some feedback to help them identify what resources that they might need.
Like a wizard, sort of, to help them guide. That's great. Okay, awesome. Here's a follow-up question for Donna of why why did we select Drupal multi-site and not Site Factory?
So I'll explain what my best understanding, not being as technical. But when we first talked about Site Factory, it was I think even Acquia thought, why aren't you using Site Factory? I remember these conversations from way back and really suggesting that we use Site Factory. But when we did our analysis, we thought Site Factory was for much more high volume, like cranking out new sites, kind of a volume than we do. And for us, the multi-site was satisfactory. We didn't feel any real value would have been delivered from using Site Factory. And I'd be more than happy to check in with our technical people too, and give a follow-up response from a technical perspective. But at a high level, that's my recollection of why we didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. It was 13 years ago, Don. It's okay. Don, here's one for you. That it sounds like you have great sponsorship in place. Do you have to continually introduce your work? And the purpose of why this is a good idea, or do agencies already have that level of digital maturity to use this new CMS?
Sure. So we have to constantly reinforce the message because, there's staff changes, right? I mean, the only thing constant is change. And so somebody new comes in and they don't have the background in history. So it's important that we always keep those goals of writing at an 8th grade level, having your site be accessible, and having fresh content to be first and foremost. And we're dealing with a spectrum of content editors and folks that um, you know that's not their day job. It's a tiny piece of what they do. And so having a good content management system on the back end is really helpful for them. But they're also maybe not people who write for the web necessarily. And so so part of our project is we actually let the agency say, hey, we'd love to have help rewriting this content. And so we actually paid for those top 10 pages to be rewritten. We also will help agencies with migrating their content. We'll help them with design. And we have to, again, continue to reinforce those messages and continue to provide that support and help on an ongoing basis to keep the site fresh and relevant and helpful to our constituents. It's a forever thing. It's not just we did it today, we got it done, now we can move on.
We're done. Okay, great. Okay, exactly. 100% signed on to everything you said. That's great. Let's. I think we have. Yeah, let's end on this. I think this question is a good one to end on. So I'm going to ask you both to direct it to both of you. So what would be your advice for state government who isn't currently using open source? And the example here is that Connecticut doesn't. They use a proprietary source CMS right now. What would you say to them of why they should maybe go to open source?
Well, the community in open source is a huge selling factor. Everything we've done, well, not everything, but a lot of the things that we've done are just plainly available. A lot of the things that Dawn's team are doing, a lot of the things Massachusetts, Arizona, or any other state that's on Drupal have done are easy to either get directly if they've been shared with the community, or they're accessible in other ways. So that's one reason. Another reason is the cost effectiveness. One of the things that we faced back in before 2011 was the licensing fees on the proprietary content management system that we were on. It was enormous, the licensing fees. And there was no customization. You know what I mean? Like, you get what you bought out of the box. But with the open source, you have so much more freedom to build on it. So you can actually have the system that's no bigger than what you need and no less than what you need. You can build exactly what you need. A lot of it's already built and available to you, and you can just kind of piece it together in some way. Not to say there's not work, there's absolutely work, but I think from a cost effectiveness and just kind of the availability of the community resources are two huge selling factors for open source.
Well, I'd certainly agree with everything that Donna said in that availability of the different modules. And I would go, sort of a step further in that we're trying to avoid any custom code, right? We're trying to use modules and configure them. Obviously, there's configuration to the greatest extent possible, because it's not just we don't have the licensing costs, and that's a great savings. But if you did a lot of custom code, then you'd also have a lot of maintenance cost on an ongoing basis. And so we're able to reduce our maintenance costs, our annual year-over-year costs, not just on licensing, but on the effort to support and maintain it, because of the approach that we've taken as a single, now soon to be 2 sets of code bases instead of 92. That's a huge win, but also because of the structure of Drupal and being able to use these modules out of the box, configuring them without customization is a huge win.
Yeah. Fantastic. This I can't thank you both enough for joining me for our initial Gov Talks, this new webinar series. Mentioned earlier in the when we started that this is new, and if there are states out there that have something that they'd like to talk to us about, we'd love to have a chat and meet with you and sit down. I can put my email address in the chat. Oh, Erica's got me. That's my friend there. She put my email address in the chat there, and so please reach out if there's anything you'd like to talk about, and we'll get that underway. We have more GovChats coming on later this year, so please, the best way to find out is probably to follow our LinkedIn social media channel. Right now we currently have plans to discuss AI in the next month or two. So please look for that. And thank you all so much for joining and taking time out of your day. Really appreciate it, and I hope you all have a good one. Thank you.